What's going on, Archivist, and welcome to the Archivist Almanac, a Grand Archive TCG podcast. This week is a special one because I don't really have, I guess I kind of have locals to talk about, but more particularly, we went to Ascent Boston, which is, if you're not in the US, up in Boston, Massachusetts. It was approximately, actually, before I hop into any of that, let's talk about locals, right? So I have a shop near me. It's about maybe 40-ish minutes away that is called Mana and Mochas. And if you guys watch some of the videos on the channel, you know, I picked up a case of distorted reflections from them on DTR release. The shop owner, his name is Mocha Joe, as he's known in Discord. Super nice. It's a fantastic place to be. Our very first locals had 4 people, which was super nice to just be able to fire off an event. And I did end up winning that locals. So yeah, I guess it is warranted talking about locals. I hit a goal for myself, which was going, well, I guess I originally hit that goal at Yeti when I went 3-1, but I went 2-1 at this locals. So I decided to play Wind Jin. The reason I decided to play Wind Jin is because I have not modified Jin since DTR came out. All of my work has gone into Lorraine, Diana, because I do have Diana built, and that's it. I haven't really touched Jin. So this is my win Jin list basically from last season. But, you know, I was just like, I don't want to play Lorraine because it was 4 of us, one of which was the store owner himself, Mokojo, who was very interested in learning the game. It's why he got it in the first place. So he was learning, myself. There was another person who was playing Fire Aggro. Was it Suzaku? No, I think it was just Fire Aggro, or like Fire, maybe Diaochan? Ping? I can't remember. It was some iteration of Fire Aggro, ping damage. And then our last person playing Sylvie Slimes. I do love Slimes. This person has been playing the game for a little bit, but they are also a little bit newer. So I didn't want to take something like Lorraine and be like, oh yeah, here's this like big bad deck that she got. Like I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be like, I'm sorry, I'm playing this deck. So I wanted to play something fun anyways. Not that Lorraine isn't fun, but I wanted to play something fun. I decided to play Jin. Jin was a great time. Obviously, made me realize a lot of the deficiencies that the deck has, but it was a fun time. So I played in my round 1 against Sylvie Slimes, and we learned something afterwards that makes sense. You know, reading your opponent's cards is a thing that I should always be doing, but it was a local casual environment, so I wasn't taking anything overly seriously. He basically did a baby green to suppress the storm slime and then brought it back to kill me end of turn, but shouldn't have happened because baby green only suppresses items, which means that I would have basically ended up winning that game because I needed to just get into my Jin 3 on the next turn, and then I would have just been, you know, Jin, undying. So basically that first round went 2-1 in his favor. Game 1, I didn't see anything. Like there was no value to be generated on any sort of level whatsoever. Game 2, I saw the dungeon guide, and because like I said, last format, you know, I didn't want to give up like too much in terms of influence, but it was also my first time playing the deck, so I was trying to figure out like what the play lines were and such. But game 2 felt like much more natural, and then game 3, it was okay for the most part. I think I dragged the game out just a touch too long. I should have went for, I don't know what I materialized. Oh, I might have went for an early Huaji materialization, and I probably should have went for, yeah, I think I did the early Huaji materialization because I wanted to maximize the Jin 2, but I probably should have just turbo Jin 3 and then worry about everything else, which is probably why people don't play Huaji, and because Shuangji is just so nice. In my current material deck, I play both Shuangji and Huaji, obviously, but I also play the Executioner Spear, so I play 3 total pole arms. And I probably don't need 3 total pole arms. I probably only need just the one being the Shuangji, and then I can use the other 2 spots for other things. But I like the Huaji because I play Sansa, and Sansa is one of my favorite cards in the game. So I just like the ability of being able to drop Sansa while I have the Huaji on board. Then Jin can swing for 2. If I'm at Jin level 2, it would be Jin swing for 2, or 3 actually, restand. It could swing for another 2. and then I give the inherited buff to Sansa, and I don't believe that's a once per turn. So now Sansa could swing in for a total of 5 using the Huaji, because he would get buffed twice from Jin 1's inherited, and then he would have 2 attack or 2 power from the Huaji. So it's just a stupid little combo, but I'm a really big fan of Sansa. I actually ended up picking up a Sansa CSR last weekend in Boston. So my first CSR, well, not first, it was my second CSR because Diana 2 was my first CSR, but I was very happy to pick that up. So that was my first round. Second round, I played against the Jin Mirror, but it was just the win starter deck because that was Mokujo learning to play the game. But it still felt like, oh my goodness, if if he gets into Jin 3 and he's able to kind of like not die before I don't die, I probably die. Like, the Jin Mirror is very funny, and I would be curious to find some Jin Mirrors online to watch or something, because navigating it's kind of like you have to leave yourself just out of kill threshold, and you have to put them just under kill threshold, because then they could also pump themselves up. Obviously, the big thing is, I don't remember what cards come to starter deck for Exia, but obviously he might not have had like all the Exia, not Exia sites, Enrages, or obviously the Relentless Outburst. No, actually, I think he would have had 1 or 2 Relentless Outbursts. Either way, I know it's like, I need to keep Jin, if I'm playing against it, just under kill, or no, I have to go overkill and then hope, but then I also have to hope that I don't die on that following turn. I've never played against Jin outside of the Jin OTK deck. So, or if I have played against Jin, it's been, all right, cool, I can kill you before you got into Jin level 3. So I don't actually know how to play into Jin. So it's going to be a learning experience whenever I inevitably face it, because there were a few Jin lists at Ascent Boston. So that should be a fun time. And then in my round 3, I played against that Fire aggro deck, and oh man, I had the God Hand. When I tell you I had the God Hand, so obviously, it's Fire aggro, right? And they're going to try to kill you as fast as possible on like turn 2, turn 3. And I was just able to be like, all right, I'm going to level up into Jin 1, and then I'll DG into Jin 2, and DG into Jin 3. I did double DG on 1 turn. And I got into Jin Undying Resolve. And yeah, I had maybe like what was it? 2 to 3 card influence. But I was like, all right, cool. At least I'm not gonna die. And then for the second game, it was I dropped DG, and then he went to like swing into it or something, and then I reclaimed it. And then the next turn, I DG'd again into Jin 3. And I was like, oh, yes. I do love wind for this. So basically, I won both games because I was able to just turbo into Jin 3 and just say, all right, cool. Whatever you do to me, good luck, because everything you do, I'm just getting buffed for bigger attacks. So that was fun. 2-1, first local event that I've won, air quotes. But it's also very fun because building up a locals, it can be a process, but honestly, a big shout out to Mokujo. He runs a great place of business. They're a newer shop around. It's not, like I said, it's about 35 to 40 minutes from me. But, I've been to a fair bit of LGSs in my time playing card games, and it's always cool to see an owner take an interest in games and want to support the games and build the community. And it's not just Grand Archive he does it for a bunch of the other card games there. So, that's just my local LGS shout out to Mana and Mochas in Palmerton, Pennsylvania. If you guys are around the area, if you're interested, be sure to pop in there. We run Monday nights, I believe, at 6 p.m. And it should be a fun time. He's getting a couple more people into the game. He said his brother got interested because of the art. It's so cool to just kind of see this community build up from being nothing. So I'm very excited for that. Being able to play more Grand Archive is awesome. And especially coming from Cardfight Vanguard, where I love Cardfight Vanguard, right? That was my OG card game outside of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, of course. And my biggest problem with Cardfight Vanguard was there was nowhere around me that supported it. It was me and a friend playing in his house, and that was it. Because the closest locals to us when we were teenagers was like, yeah, 45 minutes away, 40, 45. And, you know, our parents ain't driving us out there. And even as we got older, like, yeah, I went to drive out there, but it also did suck that, like, there was this one locals on the one day of the week at this one particular time, and it was specifically the weekend. So if I couldn't make it because it's the weekend and I got other things to do, well, I'm not playing card fight that week. And that sucked big time. So being able to have multiple Grand Archive locals, especially for a game of this stature, right? Because it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not even like Digimon. It's not, you know, any Bandai card game. It's cool to just have multiple places to be able to say, yeah, it may not be 15 minutes from me, but within a, let's say, I can't put a mile radius because I suck with my geography, but within like a 40 to 60-minute drive, I can get to maybe 5 or 6 different stores on like 4 or 5 days of the week. I think it's 4 as of right now, because there's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's 5, yeah. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Friday through Tuesday, and then Wednesday and Thursday are basically the off days. Obviously, we have an event that runs every other Friday, but it's still cool nonetheless. So I'm very, very excited about that. But enough about locals. Let's talk about Ascent Boston. So if you were in Ascent Boston, you already know what's up. But if you weren't in Ascent Boston, let me just tell you, as a first-time goer to an Ascent to a Grand Archive event, this was awesome. It was awesome on so many different levels, and I could gush for days, and so I will, because that's what podcast is for. So let's see. Where do I start? I dragged the wife with me. We came down on Friday morning. I had the hotel rented for Friday through Sunday nights, and we came back up on Monday morning. I live in Pennsylvania, obviously, and Massachusetts is, well, I should say Boston specifically, is about a 5-hour drive from me, but it's more with traffic, because traffic. So it took about, I would say, 5.5 hours both ways. So it wasn't too bad. I've driven that much before. The key is getting a good night's sleep, and I got a good night's sleep before both trips, and I honestly, I could ask for nothing more, because I've definitely driven even 3 hours on less sleep, and it is really, really hard to be able to do that. So I got good night of sleep, drove the 5 some hours, came up on Friday. We went to a museum, fantastic time with the wife. Y'all will see it in the vlog. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We do have a vlog coming out soon, so be on the lookout for that. Friday night, went for registration, went for trade night. The wife went to the girls' night. I made some bad decisions. You guys will see this in another video I made, which is essentially another card cache, but I picked up another CSR. I picked up 2 CSRs that night. I originally wanted to pick up the level 1 Diana CSR, because what had happened was Core TCG set up their booth, and I'm sitting there looking at like all of their products, and I'm like, wow, I should pick up some sealed boxes, because why not? And I just couldn't decide which one to pick up, because I'm like, I don't need any more DOA. I have enough DOA bulk, and I don't really want to buy a box of DOA to potentially pull something like a GCR or Ghost or an Arthur, but then end up with like a bunch of other bulk that I don't need. So I was like, I don't want DOA. I have enough DTR. I'd rather just buy more singles from DTR. I just don't want anything. And I decided to go with Abyssal Heaven, because Abyssal Heaven is the set I have the least of. Realistically, I should have went with Alchemical Revolution or Mercurial Heart, but I don't play any decks that like coincide with those. So I'd rather just pick up what I need. But Abyssal Heaven, there are like a lot of stuff that I like playing from Mortal Ambition and Abyssal Heaven. So I decided to go with Abyssal Heaven. And our gamble paid off. I bought 3 boxes, and in my 3rd box, I pulled the Zhang Chao CSR. And I looked at it, and I was like, I should have been recording. I'm so upset. I didn't set up the camera. I had it in my mind. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go here. I'm going to set up the camera, and I'm going to record cracking the packs. But I didn't set up the camera, which was such a big fluff on my part. But with that CSR, I promptly went back to the booth, and I started looking. And I'm like, ooh, I've got, the same money that I just spent. Actually, because it was a little bit more. I believe the CSR was worth 400. So I spent 180 on the boxes because I think it was $60 per box of Abyssal Heaven. So yeah, I went gambling and I plussed 220 bucks. So I'm like, what can I pick up? So I saw the Diana level 1 CSR and I was like, I should have enough trade fodder in my binder to be able to just pick this CSR up. Unfortunately, someone picked up the entire set of Diana level 1, 2, and 3 CSRs before I was able to get my grubby little paws on it. They traded it a lot. They traded, I think he's, when they were talking, I believe they said the trade-in value was something like, I don't know, a little bit around $3,000 market. I was like, God damn. So unfortunately, I couldn't pick up the level 1. They had a level 2, but I have the level 2. So then I started looking at the level 3 and I'm like, man, do I want to pick up the level 3? And I didn't want to spend $900 on it. Well, it would have been less because of all the trade-ins. So with all the trade-ins added up, I believe initially it would have been like $389. I ended up adding my Regal Inquisitions because I wasn't going to use them anytime soon, which brought it down to, what was it? I think it was something like 320, somewhere between like 320 and 340. I can't remember. And I ended up saying, I asked, hey, can you do 300 flat? And he said, yeah, sure. So I basically got the Diana level 3 CSR for all of 480 bucks after trade-ins. If you consider that, like, I bought the boxes and then traded stuff in and whatnot. And the reason I decided to pick it up is because you can only pull the level 3 CSR from the starter decks, and the likelihood of me, like I'm not gonna buy, I would actually, let me rephrase that. I would buy a ton of starter decks for the chance to pull the CSR. If we had bigger locals, like Mana and Mocha, for example, were growing, I would definitely buy more just to be like, all right, hey guys, like, I bought all of these starter decks. I already opened, I searched them, and I'll just sell them to you at the reduced price. I don't know how much they cost, but like if they cost like, let's say 15 bucks, I'd be like, yeah, you can have the entire thing for 10 bucks. You get a $5 discount for buying my opened product that I didn't need to use. So I would totally do that. And maybe with more locals going around, I know a lot of other people around me might do that as well. So it's something I have to keep in mind. But at least at Mana and Mocha's, if I'm the only one who's going to be this big knucklehead buying high rarity stuff, that might be the move. But that was the reason I bought it, because I'm like, I'm not going to open any more starters to try to buy this. So yeah, it's expensive, but the reason it's expensive is because you have to open so many starters to try to pull this card. So I probably should just buy it instead of trying to gamble on the starters. And this way now, technically speaking, buying the level 1 CSR is easy, right? Because in my mind, if we call it boy math or card game player math, I could have bought the level 1 CSR for it if it were available. And buying that level 1 CSR would mean, cool, I have the level 1, level 2, and I just need to spend $900 on the level 3. But the card game player or the boy math says, all right, well, I pulled the level 2. I only paid $300 for the level 3 CSR. So now I only need to spend $600 on a different card. I'm still paying $900 at the end of the day. So whether I got the level 1 or the level 3, I would have been spending the same amount of money, but you're spending it differently, right? You're buying one card now and you're buying one card later. Boy math, whatever. What else? Oh yes, like I said, I picked up the Sansa CSR, which I love. I've always been looking at it. Sansa's one. It's also funny because Sansa is a cheap CSR. I remember seeing him just a little bit lower. Like right now, he's currently listed for 120 on TCG Player, but I remember seeing some listings, and he was like maybe $100, 80 bucks. Maybe I might have seen that on Merlin's Marketplace, but I'm happy I got one. I would love to pick up a playset, and I most certainly will try to, but we're good with one for now. I'm playing one in my learning deck because, like I said, I love that card. So that was our pickups from Trade Night. Bought some box of Abyss. Oh, and I got some Merlin sleeves. I was super excited to get those Merlin sleeves because on TCG Player, they're like 40, 50 bucks, and nobody's selling them on Merlin's Marketplace. So I was like, damn, I'm never going to get these sleeves, but I did, because shout out to Core TCG. That was pretty freaking awesome. So now we enter day one. So I wake up early, I head across to the event. I wanted to get there for the Ascent store stuff, but I didn't want to wake up too early. I wanted to give myself good time to spend time with the wife, rest, and just be rested for the event to be able to have a good mindset. I ended up picking up 2 playmats from the shop, which was Fluffy Shopkeep on the first day, and then I picked up a Lost in Thoughts playmat on the second day. I also picked up some t-shirts. Y'all can see that in the video I put out with the card cash. You see everything I picked up from Ascent Boston. So fun time, great pickups. For the event, on day one, I dropped at 2-4. Reason I dropped is because I was not having a good day. It was such a weird, oh man, I don't even know how to describe it. It was, it's the Rile package, right? And it's also the nature of card games and RNG. Sometimes you see it and sometimes you don't. But the way that I was seeing it was just man, this sucks. I literally had a game, my last game of the day against Suzaku. I literally was not able to do anything. And I was sitting there debating, because I couldn't play anything at fast speed. They weren't playing any spells for me to negate. I had an annul spell in hand. And I didn't have anything else to cast, and they weren't dropping allies. So I couldn't even drop I think I had an Undying Dreams. No, I don't think I had the Undying Dreams. I don't think I had any float. So I was like, gosh, I can't do anything. And I really contemplated just hard dropping a dungeon guide for 3 just because. And I'll be honest, watching the gameplay on stream, I watched a few different matches. It did change my mindset about how I play the game, especially watching Bobby Tortilla win Ascent Boston. Between his last 2 matches that he had, it really just made me think, okay, so I do need to kind of be able to pivot. I need to say, all right, I'm not doing this thing. And because I'm not doing this thing, I need to generate something more. And I just need to do something. And I think that's where my biggest fault lied. I think my biggest fault lied in not acknowledging that I should be trying to progress the game state somehow. Yes, I have a brick hand, but there's something I can play, even if it's not optimal. Even if I'm going for a dungeon guide and not getting max value off the dungeon guide, right? Because dungeon guide does say you may banish. I don't have to banish. I could have dropped dungeon guide for 3 and not level up, just to have 3 cards in banishment to be able to level up on my following turn. But, I come from Digimon, where sometimes not doing anything, and for what it's worth, yes, in GA, not doing anything is the best action at times. But in this instance, if this was the same situation in Digimon, I would have probably just dropped, I would have had a tamer or something to drop. And even if I didn't, I would have probably been locked at 1 or 2 memory. And the better play would just be to pass, because ideally I can do something on my next turn, whether it's raise and digivolve, or I'll draw into another card. And I thought I could do the same thing here, but it was not kicking off. And for what it's worth, that might not be the bad decision, right? I do run 8 draw cards, 4 Rile the Abyss and 4 Creative Shock. It just so happens that in that game, when my opponent and I looked at my deck, because they asked, and I looked at it from the bottom, in the bottom third of the deck, it was Creative Shock, I don't know, Liminal Guide or a Dungeon Guide, whatever, and then Rile the Abyss, Creative Shock, Creative Shock, Creative Shock. I was like, there's just no way. There's no way that this is even humanly possible. So it is what it is. That's kind of the story about how the day went. I lost to, let's see what I lost to. I lost to FISA. So I lost to that 0-2, I believe, yeah. I lost to Suzaku. I lost to the mirror, a Lorraine mirror. And I lost to, what else did I lose to? I don't remember the 4th deck I lost to, but it was definitely, it felt like it was another aggro deck. And I won against CL in my first round. And then when we came back from break, I won against, I guess, I didn't know what to call this on the vlog. And I saw him afterwards and I asked him. and he didn't have like a name for it, but he basically said his entire goal was just, I'm just gonna go into Lorraine 1, I get out Sword Saint's Vow, and I'm just gonna Rending Flames. So I guess it was kind of like Lorraine allies, but he really wasn't even playing like allies like that. So it was really just like Lorraine Sword Saint Vow. I don't know, I guess. Um that's the two decks that I won against. And if I do end up remembering the fourth deck that I lost to, I'll let you know. But I learned a lot. It was a really good event to learn a lot with. And if I had went by myself, I would have continued to play out the event just because, it would have been me by myself. I wouldn't have had my wife. One of the biggest things was I had my wife. So, I wanted to make sure that not only does she have a fun time, but I didn't get like too tilted, because I can definitely get very tilted when I'm just getting battered in like that. And I think that was a situation I just needed to like remove myself from, because I was getting frustrated knowing that like my deck can go the mile, but it's not. And I needed to analyze why it wasn't going the mile. And there are thoughts that I have that I will either say later in this pod or I'll talk about in the future. But we went off and we had fun on Saturday, came back on Sunday for the I Scrubbed Out event, and I went 0-2 to start and then decided to drop because there wasn't any prizing outside of the top 8. And then again, went to have fun with her for the day. But on day 2, I lost first to Wind Vanitas, and then I lost to a Water Merlin. And those are 2 losses that like I don't even take lightly. Like, I felt like if I was a better player, if I knew my lines, if I knew the cards, it would have been easier. And I could have potentially won both. But before I talk about those, let's rewind and let me finish up talking about Ascent Boston and my matchups. So I lost to Fiza, and one thing I learned about Fiza is don't those allies stick on board. He got out a Poison Dagger, and I had either a Reduced to Ash or a Verucan Acolyte in hand. And I was like, maybe I should deal with it, but I was like, nah, I don't need to deal with it. Mistakes were made. I should have dealt with it. And I dealt with it in the second game, which helped. And we went to a game 3, or maybe that was the third game I dealt with it, but it was too late. Can't remember. I know I won the first game because I high rolled the living hell out of him. And then I didn't have any, I couldn't even like draw all that consistently in my games 2 and 3. So I needed Flame Sweep essentially to cleave the board and get rid of those allies, but I just couldn't draw into that Flame Sweep fast enough, unfortunately. One of the biggest things is that Poison Dagger, like, because of the amount of allies they put on board, if you don't deal with the allies, you're going to take +1 on every attack. And then additionally, there's things like the Arthur Young Heir that comes in, and now you're taking +2 on every attack. Do they run Arthur in that deck? I think they do. Yeah, they run Arthur in that deck. So it was really tough. But it was a fun match regardless. I did have a good time, and it felt like it was a winnable match, because it definitely is. Losing to Suzaku, I know Suzaku's a winnable match, but Suzaku is also a half of a race of how fast can I get Clarent out. And basically, going second, you're not going to get it out fast enough sometimes. Sometimes they might slow down, but always remembering that once Suzaku gets to those 7 quest counters, Peppered Chef comes online, because you go Suzaku, Peppered Chef, and then Suzaku again. You're taking 12 damage in that turn. And if you're not level 3 or you've taken enough damage where you're within that threshold and then they've got something to ping you off for game without the Clarent, it makes it really tough. Suzaku can be very, very fast. So that was my last loss. And that's basically the story about how it went. Game 2, it was basically just a scoop. Game 1, we did have some back and forth. And I can't remember how. I think one of my problems was, instead of trying to kill, one of my biggest problems is, instead of trying to kill, I tried to play like mid-range and I tried to clear board. But realistically, man, this is one thing I learned from Bobby Tortilla, like swinging with that Clarent when he was at Lorraine 3, because he represented like 5 to 6 attack every turn. I just should have been doing the same thing. I tried to say, all right, I got to clear the bird, because if I don't, yada, yada, yada. But Also, dealing 5 to 6 damage to your opponent and potentially more, because I might have had something like a dungeon guide or whatever on the field. Dealing that damage to your opponent, like I should have been doing that. And that would have posed more problems for my opponent than me just trying to clear their board, but then just giving them, I don't know, kind of the ability to do whatever it is that they want. It feels like they're dictating the tempo of the game and I'm responding rather than I'm trying to dictate the tempo of the game. So that was definitely like, I learned a lot from watching those matches, and I can already see it in my Suzaku match. I did lose to another Suzaku, and I'll be honest, I kind of barely remember this match, but I at least took a game in this match. I'm looking at it on Fractal of Insight. I took a game in this matchup, and this was probably the matchup that was like, all right, cool. How fast can I get Clarent online? Which was probably, they went first game 1, game 2, I went first, got Clarent online, and it helped stabilize a lot. And in game 3, yeah, no, I got killed. I did not have that same luck in my last round, in which I just got obliterated because draw isn't a thing in my deck, apparently. The other thing that I lost to was Lorraine, the mirror in Lorraine. And this made me realize the value of Rending Flames. So the reason I don't run Rending Flames is dualfold. Number one, it's because I don't like playing against Nullifying Lantern, but also number two is because I play Nullifying Lantern. And I play Nullifying Lantern for Suzaku for the aggro matchup because I just hate like Kindle and Suzaku returning and all that. I hate that. But playing against this made me realize that it has more value than what I originally perceived it as. Or alternatively, not running Nullifying Lantern and just kind of saying that you'll take the aggro matchup, whether it's Suzaku or anything that's doing Kindle such, or even the mirror, right? Because even in the mirror, like nullifying helps because it would shut off the opposing Rending Flames. But the big thing about it is like in a match of tempo, when we have the same play line, is like level 1, maybe you level to 2 and then you DG to 3 and then you get out, maybe you get out another sword. But at some point I need to get a Nullifying Lantern out. And at what point should I get the Nullifying Lantern out that it's helpful to me and that it doesn't make me lose a step in the game, which is a big thing to consider because I'm a deck that inherently is focused on punching my opponent in the face. So because I'm focused on punching my opponent in the face, why am I running a card that isn't helping me punch my opponent in the face? You know what I mean? And that's the biggest thing that I felt like I learned. The Rending Flames is super awesome because at level 2, you can have, let's say you still have your Inert Sword, right? Her attacks get +2 with the on enter. Let's say you say screw it, like if for whatever reason you've dealt enough damage or your opponent is at low enough health that you can just go, all right, cool, Inert Sword with the Rending Flames. This is going to go for a total of 7 base, right? Inert Sword for 2. Her attacks get +2 with the on enter, so that's 4 base. Rending Flames is coming in for 3, so that's a total of 7. But if you take this attack, it deals 14. You could potentially kill an opposing spirit. Like if you go first, they go first, then you go second, you level up. And then I guess you would need more cards in trash, so you might not have them. But like if you're able to draw cards and put cards in trash, you could potentially kill a spirit if you have like the DG into the Rending Flames on your turn 3? No, on your turn 2 or even your turn 3 if they don't respect the Rending Flames, which is the big thing for me for the entire day. I didn't respect the Rending Flames because the same Rending Flames happened against the Sword Saint's Vow. It was like, all right, cool, it's only going to do like, I don't know, 8 damage, whatever. No. It's going to do 8, but it's rending, so it's going to double to 11 and deal 22. And I was like, ooh, yeah, that's pretty tough. And even if you Resolute Stand, all right, cool, it's going to, what was it? 11, so it comes down to dealing 8, but it's still going to do 16, which is a lot to swallow. So I learned to respect rending on my opponent's side. B, I should play rending. And C, I don't need to play this sort of, I guess I'm trying to play Lorraine, to put it better, I'm trying to play Lorraine out of its playstyle a little bit. And instead of trying to punch my opponent in the face, I'm trying to sit back and control the game, but I'm not really a control deck. If I wanted to be a control deck, I should play Merlin. I'm much more of a, level 3, not aggro, but level 3, like just punch in face deck. I don't know how to describe it, right? So I did learn that, and I decided to take Null Lantern out of my main deck and go with 7 swords and be greedy like I originally was. That's basically my big thing. I was debating how greedy I wanted to be. And I was like, I can't be too greedy. I should play Null Lantern because aggro. But no, I can beat aggro without Null Lantern. I can beat aggro if it's allies because I have cleave. And I can beat aggro if it's ping damage because Clarent, if I can stabilize fast enough. Or if I see Dungeon Guide to give me a life threshold, or if I can get into level 3 and just generate in such insane value that now I have the influence to kind of do whatever I want. So yeah, we learned a lot from that matchup as well. And that was the story of day 1. Day 2, or more specifically the Scrubbed Out event, that was my first loss to Vanitas. So I learned about Razorgale. I learned about why that deck was so oppressive at Toronto, at Ascent Toronto. It was nasty, and Clarent helped a lot. But, reading and understanding the stack, those are important things, important skills to have. So one thing I didn't realize, and it makes sense because it's like Burst Asunder, right? Clarent says whenever whichever unit, most times it's your champion, would be dealt non-combat damage, you prevent 2 of that, right? Well, with Razorgale, if they have 3 Razorgales, you're not taking 3 damage. You are taking 3 instances of 1 damage, meaning that Clarent will not protect against the 3 damage and make you take 1. It will protect against all 3 instances, which I didn't think about. Didn't think about that. So yeah, lessons were learned. Lessons were learned big time about that. I probably wouldn't have lost game 1. The best part was that, like, shout out to my opponent. My opponent was super nice. That's friend B, if you happen to be watching this. I guess we both like misunderstood what Clarent. Obviously, I misunderstood, and he did as well because he asked to read it during the second game, and then he called the judge over. He's like, cleared up the interaction, and he was like, "Yeah, that game 1 should, or I didn't want to cheat you." And I was like, "Oh shit! Like, I should have realized that. I should have known that for my game 1. It is what it is. It's no big deal. We learning, and it's whatever. Just good to know. Read and understand. I think there's definitely a lot to be said about understanding what exactly it is that your card is doing. Like, I know that Clarent protects me from non-combat damage, but what is the way that it does it? It does it in the way that it protects each instance. And I have to like drill that into my head because I originally didn't understand that about like Burst Asunder either. So yes, lessons were learned. And game 1 could have went differently if I realized that, because I think I would have been able to pressure, but game 2 was just tough because we'd already spent maybe like, I don't know, 35 minutes on that game 1. So game 2 definitely would have been tough. But that deck is really cool. I mean, y'all saw it because it was 5 of the 8 decks in the top 8. But it's cool because it's like, cool, here's this. It's not an advanced element champion, but it is wind. And if you play it in wind, you get I think it's like a glimpse effect. And if you play it, you can play it in fire, obviously, because you can play it on any champion, any spirit. But playing it wind-based gives you that little extra buff. And the wind cards that it has, I mean, with Razorgale just saying, all right, cool. When I play a wind card, you take 1 damage. I have 3 Razorgales, you will take a multiple damage. And it's really nasty to be able to just play cards, deal damage to your opponent, and then Vanitas is swinging for damage, and then 3 visits. So if you guys didn't know, if you were like me and you didn't know like what the busted combo was, 3 visits got an errata to say that you have to rest your champion to be able to do it, but it did not have that errata previously. So you were able to just play 3 visits from hand and then banish it from grave to activate it again, and then bottom deck it from banishment to activate it once more. And so if you had 1 Razor Gale, you deal 3 damage. But if you had 2 Razor Gales, you're dealing 6. And if you had 3 Razor Gales, you're dealing 9 damage off of effectively only paying once for this card. And 3 Visits also says, cool, my champion gets to recover 2, and I get to glimpse. So yeah, that card is a card. It's honestly, it's pretty cool. I like the idea of what the deck does, and another one for me to say, hey Marvin, if you're interested, you should go check that deck out. Shout out to my boy Marvin. My game 2, I lost to, what was it, Merlin, Water Merlin specifically. And Water Merlin, I did not respect it. That's all I can say. I did not respect that it would be Water Merlin. I saw the Spirit of Water. I saw the level into level 1 Lorraine, and I said, what are the chances that this is Water Merlin? Could he be playing, Water Lorraine for whatever reason? And I said, nah, I don't think that this is going to be Merlin. And I'll tell you what, we were punished. We were punished very heavily for not respecting Merlin, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. I have to learn to respect those matchups just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. So we lost game 1. Basically, real talk, we lost game 1 because I didn't respect. If I did respect the fact that it was Merlin, I would have had like a different line of play, and even if he had interacted with it, it would have been fine. But I basically just gave him the free level counter, and because I banished a float, I gave him the free level counter, and I had to pay anyways to get a card out of my hand. Compared to if I'd done something different, put cards down to just be able to level up, I wouldn't have effectively lost 2 cards. I would have just lost 1 card. So we didn't respect it, and that game was just tough. It was really tough for me not doing that initial respect of Merlin. One big thing that really did help, though, in my day 2, I went with a lot of different ideas in the deck because I wanted to try different things out. I wasn't going for cohesiveness in a way. I was just kind of throwing things in, seeing how they worked. And one thing I really liked, I've always loved it, Cheshire Cat, but I put in Consumption Ring. And that Consumption Ring was so beautiful. Consumption Ring helped in both the Vanitas game and the Merlin game, because I cracked it, but I didn't just crack it, I cracked the Cheshire Cat. Yes, Cheshire Cat has the activated ability of all Distortion Regalia you control. So I was able to do a swing. All right, cool. Now it's your turn. I'll banish this and tax you. And then it comes back to me. But I ended up getting killed on my turn with Vanitas. And against Merlin, while I got the first Consumption Ring off, he fracturized my Consumption Ring in the end of my second turn of having the Consumption Ring, which let him go free game. So unfortunate, it is what it is. And that is how my Ascent Boston went. All in all, it was a very fun event. I didn't play in any side events because I was basically in Path of Steel for 6 rounds effectively. And then I went off to have fun with the wife because it closed. I was going to stay for maybe a constructed event, but I didn't feel like playing in the starter deck event. Oh no, it was the fact that if I had entered, they would have had 7, so somebody would have ended up with the bye. So instead of entering, I just let them have 6 players so that everybody could play against someone. And I also didn't necessarily care to play in the starter deck event, but I would have, because I would have just played Seal, because I do want to play Seal. In day 2, I just decided, all right, I'm not going to try to sit here and play this out. I could go play in some starter deck events, but I really wanted to go to some museums in Boston. And so I got to see MIT Museum, which was so fantastic. I loved it. Would love to go back again with my daughter and show her all the cool stuff that I saw. But all in all, a fun time in Boston, both playing cards and hanging out with my wife. And one more thing that I wanted to add, probably like the biggest takeaway for me is pivoting from being on the fragmented Spirit of Fire to just a regular Spirit of Fire. I really do like fragmented because it helped a lot. I had a hand where I would have drawn into, I had an initial set of Ghost of Pendragon and a Spirit Blade Ascension, and I would have drawn into another Ghost and another Spirit Blade Ascension maybe like 2 or 3 cards later. So that would have made me end up with essentially duplicates in my hand, which I hate to see, especially early game. On the flip side, however, what I consider why I think Spirit of Fire, at least for like Lorraine, obviously there are different applications for different spirits, but one of my biggest problems was I want to just hard level because I don't have, whether it's float or I don't have a DG, so I just need to hard level, but you're at 6 cards with fragmented until you get into level 3. Being down that 1 card on early influence really makes it difficult because it's like, oh man, if I do this, like I'm not gaining the advantage of that card draw until I get into my level 3, and things are going to be rough in the interim compared to, all right, you're on 7 cards. All right, screw it. You got to pay 1 card from hand to level up into Lorraine 1, whatever. And then let's just say you end up getting a float, but then you have to pay 1 more card from hand. And I believe at that point, like you would draw a card for turn. So effectively you're going to stay at 6, but then you'll go down to 5. But that's compared to going down to 4 cards in hand on fragmented, doing the same plays. It also makes the math for some cards really hard. Like sometimes, like the one time I had a flame sweep in hand, but I only had 4 cards in hand. So I just did not have enough to do a flame sweep because of having to do hard leveling. And it's really tough. It is really tough. So I went to Spirit of Fire because in the situation, right? Let's say my opening hand, I have a Ghost and I have a Spirit Blade Ascension. Cards are useless to me right now until I get into level 3. And then I draw into another one. The difference between drawing in 2 more and having duplicates of each in your hand, so you have 4 dead cards in your hand, and putting 2 of those cards to the bottom early on and then drawing into 2 more, is that those 2 more that you draw into, you are more inclined to keep. Because now those are cards, you know you already bottom deck 2 of them, so you are basically never going to see those cards. And in the rest of your deck, if you're playing a play set, you have, if you get rid of this current set that's in your hand, what are the chances of you seeing your next 2 Ghost of Pendragon and your next 2 Spirit Blade Ascensions? So what I rather for the Spirit of Fire is, instead of making me get rid of these cards, screw it. If I have to use these to level up, I will, because they're not serving me any purpose right now until I level up anyways. It's the same thing as putting them to the bottom of your deck, but it hurts less getting rid of those cards if you absolutely need to, because you know that you have the duplicates in hand already, instead of saying, damn, I put those to the bottom and I don't think I can get rid of these, because if I get rid of these, or let's say I end up having to banish one by chance and it does end up happening, then I don't have this and it makes it rough. So I think it's kind of like in a weird way, it's kind of like shifting the blame, because you shift the blame. Instead of putting the cards on the bottom of the deck, you're now holding onto those same brick cards, but you get to banish them at choice rather than at the beginning of the game. And it really goes in line with something. Shout out to I believe this was my 5th round opponent. He went to banish cards all day. I was just giving my opponent the chance to banish things when I was paying for cost. And he said, I'm going to roll a dice, and I'm going to roll the dice so that if I banish something that I don't want to banish, I get to blame myself instead of blaming you. And I was like, you know what? Like, you are so right. You are so right. I had so many times. The one time I banished a DG, this was in the Lorraine matchup. I banished a DG that really hurt because I needed the DG for that turn, but I didn't have a choice based on the cards that I put down. And I'd given him the choice and he banished the DG is what I should say. And I'm just like, damn, chose a good card. And you could kind of see it like all across the tournament. And even sometimes when you watch it on stream, it's just like, damn, they picked a good card. My opponent let me pick a card, that same Lorraine player, and I picked it. He was like, you could pick Total Gas. And I picked this one card. What was the card? It was Ensel. It was Total Gas. And I was like, yeah, good pick. But in a weird way, rolling the dice to say, yeah, when I banish this card, it's because I rolled the dice in this way. So I only have myself to blame for my luck on the dice compared to, damn, my opponent picked a good card. Like, again, it's just a shift of the blame, but it is a funny way to look at it, whether you're looking at the banishing of cards or the glimpsing of cards, shifting the blame, sometimes it's better to just do it. I mean, when we're talking about, banishing cards, letting your opponent do it or doing the dice roll, that's minuscule in the grander scheme of things. It's just something more for your mentality. But definitely when it comes to putting cards on the bottom of the deck for glimpse, I had so many times where I rathered the Spirit of Fire so I could have that +1 on influence in the early game so that I could do plays that I wasn't able to do on the fragmented Spirit of Fire. Now, I think in Merlin, it's still really good because depending on what you're playing against, Merlin can just get up to level 3 and then get that additional card draw with the Spirit Fragment. But generally speaking, I would just rather Spirit of Fire. So that's the wrap up for how Ascent Boston went for me. I'm interested to hear from you guys in the comments down below. How was your Ascent Boston? What did you enjoy, or what are some of the things that you didn't enjoy? Drop a like on this video if you liked it, and also subscribe so that you know when future podcasts come out. Thank you guys for watching this episode of the Archivist Almanac. And until I talk to you guys the next time, peace out.